Hi, Peter.
Hello,
You guys
John.
didn't know he was going to be here? Did some of you not know? It's pretty awesome, right?
We meet again.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Peter and I are friends. Whoa. You think that's the drum that's doing that?
John and I have been on a cruise together.
This is we're a little under the gun because Yo-Yo Ma's coming in later.
This is
Into
true.
this theater, and so we have a hard out at 6 so that Yo-Yo Ma can sound check. So I'm just going to set my alarm so that there we go. So we won't go over.
Yo-Yo Ma, I know Yo-Yo. Very nice man. Don't piss him off.
No, it's true. No.
Like that.
This is for Yo-Yo Ma, actually.
This is
that's
his
why
drum.
I had to bring this out. He's doing a new act.
He's abandoned the cello
Yeah, he's working. It's
for the big bass drum.
Yeah.
Actually, this is the best part. He's waiting inside. At 6 p.m. exactly, he bursts out.
Right.
And none of us had better be here.
But yeah, only if the theater is clear.
Exactly.
It's like a Schrödinger cat experiment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We
At this
won't
moment,
know.
Yo-Yo Ma is both dead and alive inside.
The problem is he only has enough air until 6.
So we'll just have to keep the pace up. And one way we'll do that is I have my alarm, and we'll never really have any questions. And we'll take your questions later, but we're just going to
We're just going to talk.
It's a lovely Sunday afternoon, everybody. It's raining out. It's so nice that you're here. Please get comfortable. I know part of me just wants to just shut this down and just make some grilled cheese sandwiches and put 7 Samurai up there and have a real rainy Sunday. Do you know what I mean?
That is how they roll in Evanston.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
Wouldn't that be nice to just get under the quilt and just watch movies all afternoon?
Are you taking off your shoes?
Sure, it was Sunday, Just relax. This is this is how I relax on stage now.
You look, with the glasses and the mustache and the bare feet, you look like the hero of a Bollywood action film getting ready for a fight.
Do you know? I'm going to fight with my feet of
Exactly.
fury. Yeah.
Right.
I did an action film.
Did you really?
Yeah, well, partly. There's a comedian named Eugene Merman. I'm sure you know him. He's fantastic. And sure, those two people can... that was like half a clap. It was just like, oh, no one else says, okay, sorry. Take it back. Eugene had a pilot, which unfortunately I don't think got picked up by Comedy Central, called Eugene. And he asked me if I would do a thing in the pilot, and the whole scheme of the show was as if Eugene Merman had his own cable station, like Oprah Winfrey. So all the shows were Eugene programmed shows, and he would just show little snippets of it. And there was this talk show, and he comes and he invites me on as myself, and he says, "So you have a new movie out?" And I go, "Yeah, it's called Where Are My Grandparents?" And it's about a guy who has lost his grandparents.
Yeah.
And he gets into all kinds of hilarious scrapes trying to find them. I think we have a clip. And then it cuts to me chasing a guy down an alleyway in a 3-piece suit. And then I grab him, and then can I curse in here? Would you? Yeah.
So then show of hands, cursing, yes?
Okay.
Cursing, no. You're okay, go.
Yeah. So then I kicked the living shit out of him with my feet and my hands.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like this huge choreographed fight scene. Like we had stunt people who were training us on how to do it, and I don't remember the guy who I kicked the living.
I bet
stuff
he
out of.
remembers.
Yeah, well, that's the way it is. That's the food chain of Hollywood. And so it was this whole Liam
Who are you?
Neeson.
I got the shit kicked out of me by John Hodgman.
Yeah.
That's a distinction.
Shit kick out E number
Yes,
3.
exactly. I love this. That
And
you
it ends with me where I have him on the ground, and I'm yelling at him, "Where are my grandparents? Where are my grandparents?" And then I pick up a brick and I smash his face in, and fake blood goes up on me. And it was the most exciting thing I've ever done on screen or in life.
Sure.
And I really want to write a screenplay called John Hodgman Action Vehicle, which is just like a Liam Neeson style old man hitting people action movie.
Yeah.
But with no jokes in it. Like, I just want to be completely straightforward. I really want to become an international action star because it just seems like, where else can I go?
That is a good question.
Yes.
I have some questions for you, and they are predicated, as I'm sure everybody here knows, John has written now a trilogy of books. The last is called That Is All. And it is available, I believe, with the other two books for sale later.
Yes.
And
they were for sale in the lobby, and then afterwards, if you'd like, I can sign them downstairs.
This is the third, making the complete compendium of complete world knowledge.
Yes.
That was just redundant.
Yes.
They are extremely useful in terms of planning for the blood wave, the dog storm, and other elements of Ragnarok.
The end of the world that's going to happen according to the Mayans on December 21st.
Right.
I hate those Mayans, but you got to listen to them.
And it is, and I assume you all know this because you paid to be here, extremely funny. Maybe the funniest book, or the funniest series of books I've read in years.
Come on.
No, it's all true. But here's the thing. You know this, how funny John is. I know this. I wanted to talk, in the time I've got to talk to you here, about something else, which is about how wise you are.
I'm extremely wise.
You are. And how many of here are aware of the podcast, actually it's called the Judge John Hodgman podcast?
Thank you very much.
And I could describe it, but I'd rather that you do.
So the Judge John Hodgman podcast, first of all, thank you for listening to things that are free. The Judge John Hodgman podcast, of which the New York Times Magazine columnist,
Yes.
the column Lillo, or whatever the most diminutive thing you could add to column.
Yeah.
Because it is supposed to be no longer than 85 words long.
Colomito.
Columita.
Feminine. All right. Columita?
Columnella, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
That is a spin-off
Nano-column.
of the podcast. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, and it's something that I do with my friend Jesse Thorne, who hosts public radio's Bullseye, and has his own little Yeah, sure. So you should meet the Eugene Merman fan over there. And he has his own little podcast empire called Maximum Fun, and he has hosts podcasts. And he had asked me some years ago to be a judge on one of his other podcasts, in which I would play a sort of Judge Wapner, Judge Judy type of role and mediate a dispute. And we had a really good time. And so I guess now, almost 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to do a podcast of my own, and that just seemed like the most fun thing to do.
Right.
So in the podcast, Jesse is the bailiff of the court of Judge John Hodgman. I am the judge in the court of Judge John Hodgman. And we have people who call in from all over the country with disputes. And the disputes range from the ridiculous, like two guys who have been fighting since they were kids over whether or not a machine gun would qualify as a robot. The answer is no. Machine gun has no self-autonomy of any kind, and it cannot murder you without a human operator, which any robot can do.
I would concur.
To really sort of heavy, surprisingly heavy disputes between, for example, a man who started running marathons. You're a runner, so maybe it was you. I don't know. A man who started running marathons, saying that he would only run for marathons for a year, or he set a time limit on it. But then after he got to that point, he wanted to keep going, and he had done a half Ironman triathlon. He wanted to do a full Ironman triathlon, and his wife didn't want him to do it because she's a physician. She was concerned about the health effects of training, and also the lack of having a husband and father in the family. Because for a full Ironman, you have to train how many hours?
Many. Basically, how many hours are there in a week? More than that.
Right, exactly.
So if there are, say, 180 hours in a week, you have to train about 200-300 hours.
And so I had to sort of listen to both arguments, and ultimately I'd decide with the wife and say, no, you can't fulfill your dream. And it was very controversial. A lot of people on the internet did not like that. A lot of weirdo runners thought that that was not okay.
We don't like to be told no.
Well, right, but here's the thing.
Yes.
So his argument was, I'm sorry to go into this, but it's
No, please. It's an incredible interest to me.
His argument was, by doing this, I'm not just doing it for myself.
Right.
We have 2 sons, and I'm presenting a model of discipline and training to my sons, of starting something crazy and actually pushing through and finishing it.
Yes.
And I said, well, okay, that's true. Like, I'm not deranged enough to argue that that's not true, but I would say this. You also are demonstrating not keeping your promise to your wife because you decided you're more important. So if you do this, you're demonstrating a negative as well as a positive. So consider that. And 2, who cares about this dumb running? Seriously. I mean, well, and that, seriously, you're going to take yourself out of the family completely
Yes.
for a long period of time to do this completely arbitrary, body-punishing chore that will make you feel good for about 5 seconds and put you in a lot of pain for about 1,000 hours. And you won't even be there for your family to be a role model to them during this time. Your absence will be the role model. And I said, look, everyone is happy when the dream involves some kind of physical exertion, because sports, right? Everyone loves sports. You know, even the dumb, solitary sports of personal perfection,
Right.
Like climbing a thing, or crossing a distance in a certain period of time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
or leaping.
yeah, which is basically as nerdy as painting a lead miniature in your basement. That's how. You know, it's just like, I'm going to get this exactly right, you know. And honestly, but everyone's just like, yeah, you climbed a thing, you ran a thing. But if he had come, and everyone was so mad on the internet, but if he had come to the court of Judge John Hodgman and said, yes, I have a personal goal that I would like to fulfill and be a role model to my family. I would like to go to McMurdo Station in Antarctica and isolate myself so that I may finally watch every episode of Doctor Who.
Right. That woman down there is like, now that's a goal
Yeah.
I can get behind.
You know, I want to leave my family to watch every episode of Blake 7 or something. And it's just like, yeah, another
There she
Eugene
is.
Murphy. Yeah. It's nice to know where the Blake 7 fans are in the room. Security. But it just, the double standard, because if someone said that they were going to do that,
Yes.
no one on the internet, well, maybe people on the internet would defend them, but no one in regular society would defend
Right.
them.
So you're saying we're privileging sort of
Of course.
pastimes of exertion.
Oh, do you not live in America? Of
I
course.
do.
Of course, we privilege sports and jockism over nerdism at every turn.
Right.
Yeah, that is our culture.
So,
or was.
I will come back to the Jerd Knock thing. The
Jerd Knock thing.
The Jerd Knock, the jock nerd thing.
That's the malapropism drum.
But
Or Spoonerism drum. Which is it?
Spoonerism. That was the Spoonerism,
Spoonerism, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jerd Knock would be technically
Jerd Knock.
Spoonerism.
Yep. That's also the name I use to check into hotels here in Chicago, so that you people don't find me.
Jerd Knock?
Jerd Knock.
Or Mr. Malaprop.
Jerd Knock Malaprop, the 9th, aging action star.
Here's what I was getting at by
Yes.
bringing up the podcast.
My goal is to never let you ask a question.
I'm perfectly happy to spend the evening.
How
and
many
prelude.
miles did you run today?
I actually, I did not run many miles today. I ran a mere 2 today. 'Cause I
2
was
miles?
tired. I was tired from running 13 yesterday.
You ran 13 miles yesterday?
I did.
Well, I
And
admire,
I got
admire
when I
that.
finished, I was just at home. It seemed
know.
rather pointless, actually.
I admire what you do. The running is fantastic.
right-
I don't just,
There are
Do you
days.
use those shoes that have the toes cut out in them?
I have used those.
And what do you feel about them? You feel pretty dumb in them,
I
right?
feel pretty dumb. I do feel pretty dumb. I put them on for the first time, and my daughter, who was 7 at the time, said, "Lizard man! Lizard man!" and you sort of run down the street, and you kind of feel very boyish and free because you like have bare feet on, much as you do now.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And then you
well, I have lint hanging off my toe though.
And then you step on something sharp and you squeal like a little girl.
Like a sharp rock.
Yes, that's not fun.
Could something get through there? Like, could you? Like, is it material?
It did not happen to me, but it hurts.
If you stepped on glass, would you cut your foot?
That could in fact happen.
There's something really remarkably freeing about walking around with bare feet.
There is.
I have to say, it's really fantastic, and you people should do it all the time.
Do you ever have the sensation when you're walking around that you could actually grip the ground with your toes in a prehensile way?
Like Nightcrawler?
Very much like Nightcrawler. Yes, and hang from things.
Yeah. No, I never.
Vanish with the smell of sulfur.
I never have that.
Which you habitually do anyway. I meant to talk to you about that.
Yeah. But you know, I did a promotional video with Tom Sharpling for this book, That Is All, and part of it involved me being a deranged millionaire.
Yes.
And walking around with bare feet all the time.
Which I noticed, and I wondered what that was about. This is, by the way, very funny. You can go on the YouTube and see the book trailer for That Is All, which has maybe the funniest thing Justin Long has ever been involved in. And I say that as a fan of Justin Long, who's a funny man. But that little bit you do with him is hilarious.
Where Justin Long is, well, I don't want to get into the
I
whole
won't give it away.
He's an extremely funny person.
He is.
But yeah, no, and so I had to commit to this idea that this guy walks around in bare feet, because the idea of being a deranged millionaire is that you know, you dress for success. No, you dress for your comfort.
Exactly.
You dress in a way that shows that you don't give a, I'm going to curse again, get ready. You don't give a feces what the world thinks of you. But more important, you don't dress for your comfort, you dress to make others less comfortable.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what the bare feet is. But then I realized I had to commit to the idea of bare feet, even when it involved me walking into Times Square and yelling, "The end is nigh, the end is nigh."
Yeah.
And walking all through several shots through Times Square, which is in New York City, in case you don't know, in bare feet. And it was initially terrifying, but then it was one of the most liberating things you could do.
You're connected to the world.
You're connected to the world, and you realize there's nothing to be afraid of for the most part.
Really? So it was sort of doing that is sort of a...
I still have syringes up there that
Absolutely.
I haven't gotten out yet, but
which are convenient now for your injections. But what did you take them off here so as to portray the deranged millionaire, or to feel that kind of level of comfort with perhaps a hostile audience?
I just figured everyone would take their shoes off. No, just to feel comfortable.
Sure.
Yeah, why not? Why don't you take your shoes off?
You don't want to see my feet.
All right, fine.
No one wants to see my feet.
I have 3 pedicures a day. So when you run around in those things, does it improve your does it improve
There are those who believe it does, or do. There are
Are
those
you one
who
of
believe
those?
it do. No.
No?
Yeah. No, I wore them. I was writing about them for a running magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And
You can say it, Running World, Runner's World.
Runner's World, yes.
Buzz marketing. Oh, that's... Yeah, I'm still feeling that. Well, okay, let's just tune to Mr. Ma's specifications.
We can start doing this together and do like Dork Kodo. Ready? That's an art form in some parts of the world. I thought I'd get something for Dork Kodo. Ah, well. Anyway, moving on.
Oh, I thought that was a Spoonerism.
No.
I thought it was
Kodo
Pork
drumming.
Dodo.
No.
All right.
Anyway,
All right, moving on.
I did want to ask this question.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, because I will continue to point
Let
out...
me ask you a question first.
No, my turn.
All right.
Now I forgot what it was. The point I was going to make is that in these podcasts, people bring you their problems. Sometimes they're ludicrous problems. Sometimes they're silly. In fact,
I try for them not to be ludicrous problems.
it seems sometimes that we choose silly problems. For example, there was the one I just listened to recently about the friends, one of whom wanted to trick the other into saying his name backwards, much like the Superman villain, Mr. I can't say this, Mr. Mixelpick.
Who can say it?
Mixelpick.
No, it's not Mixelplick. Come on. Because that's how I always used to say it until some hardcore nerds really schooled me.
Right.
Superman has a villain who is a dude from another dimension who wears a purple top hat, and we think it's Mixelplick or Mixelplizitic or something. It's very hard to pronounce, and the only way. Say it again, please. Yes,
good.
please. A round of applause, a Eugene Merman style.
Right. So,
And the only way to vanquish him is to trick him into saying his name backwards. So
Right.
there were these two nerds who called up, who for years, since they're now grown men, but since college, they've had a bet going that one of them said he could never be tricked into saying his own name backwards,
Right.
and the other one said, "I bet you can."
Right.
And go ahead.
There was another one, that was one. There was another one in which, if I remember correctly, the son was annoyed with his father because his father kept him mooing. Is that, or saying
Yeah,
moo?
his father had become obsessed with cows.
Yes, loved cows.
And he wouldn't moo. He would simply say cow.
That's
all
it.
All the time, as sort of a weird, sort of self-calming mantra.
Right.
And I don't think that the son was so concerned with his father as he was just fucking annoyed by it.
Right. I noticed you didn't warn them that time.
No, I didn't. I just figured we all know each other now.
Yeah.
I'm it's Sunday afternoon. Of course, I'm going to work blue. How many children are here right now? Actually, I need to know.
Over there.
They're
You
all
can't
over
really see
there.
them because their arms are so low.
I know. I apologize. I will stop cursing now. I will say, yeah, no, it's okay. Well, what we'll do is
That
we'll set up.
filthy bastard over there.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll set up a code so that the grown-ups will know when I'm cursing. So instead of saying fuck, I'll say fornicate. And instead of saying shit, I'll say feces. Is that fine? Is that acceptable to you, children?
You get a big thumbs up there
Okay.
from near the floor. So these questions, as I try to establish, seem to be silly.
Right.
But
No.
here's the great thing. Each of them, as you discuss it with him, develop into deeper issues of friendship, relations, as you say, with regard to the triathlon problem, promises made, kept, examples for children.
The father who had started to chant cow and would frequently just go into, out of nowhere, a long monologue about the beauty of cows.
Yes.
And the sense of stillness that a cow experiences, and his son, his grown son, was like, "Geez, Dad, stop it." That was a really interesting one.
It was.
Because that was not about a father. Dads, as you know, get weird. Do you know what I mean? I mean, look at this dumb mustache that I'm wearing. Like, I turned 40 years old. I grew a mustache in order to signal to the world that I don't care what you think. I am no longer a sexual being. I am ready to proceed into weird dad phase of my life. And that is clearly what this father had done. Dads become very eccentric and weird as they grow older, and it's universal, and you all know that it's true.
Yes.
And what I had to determine was whether this father was doing this out of an authentic eccentricity or a self-conscious or a conscious desire to gaslight his son and drive him crazy.
Right.
Like, was he playing head games with his son? And finally I said, "Sir, are you just, like, how much of this is truly your obsession with cows? How much of it is you just tweaking your son for your own amusement?" He said, "Quite a bit of the latter." I'm like, I rule in your favor. You win the case.
Well, that was the great thing, because knowing you, reading your books, talking to you now, you'd expect you to take these things and make a punchline out of them. You do not.
No.
In fact, to my experience, you have never done that.
Punchlines are the least funny things in the world. Don't
I
you
know.
agree?
Well, for example, that cow story, in the end, you pointed out to the two of them, you made it clear to the listeners, to us listeners? That,
To they listeners.
To they listeners. That this was, in fact, an emotional connection between these two people.
Yeah.
And that the son, being annoyed with his father going on about cows, really should feel lucky that his father was constantly reaching out to him, if only to sort of verbally tousle his hair in an annoying way.
Yeah.
And it was very moving.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you thought so.
I thought so. By the
Yeah.
way, I was running while I listened to that.
Oh, really?
Just so you know.
No, I'm glad.
So-
I'm glad to help out your weird obsession.
And so it always seems to me that you've actually, and we should expect no less from someone who is the possessor of complete world knowledge, grown quite wise. You seem to know a lot about how people are.
I was always wise.
Really?
The weird thing is that I've always been 40 years old,
Yeah.
even when I was a child.
Really?
I was an only child, so, terrible. Like, terrible person you don't want to be around. I just realized, like, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, my routine when I would come home from high school was to listen to fresh air. In high school. I would come home, I would listen to Fresh Air, I'd make some chamomile tea.
Did you check your stocks?
Have a little me time.
Yeah.
No. What's interesting was I've always been 40 years old, but I've always been a destitute 40-year-old. I never had any financial acumen until I was kidnapped by television and suddenly had financial stability for the first time in my life, and obviously it drove me crazy. But I think that also, I do think that punchlines are the least funny things in the world. Like jokes are funny, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think, it's more funny to tweak reality.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I took my shoes off. It's a joke, obviously, but I also like taking my shoes off.
Sure.
I write these books of fake, these are books of insane, amazing true facts about history and that are all made up by me. So they're all fake facts. But there's always a certain truth to all of them. They're always written by me, John Hodgman. It is not a character, but an exaggeration.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And so the first one was written from the point of view of a professional writer, which is what I was at the time. I was a magazine writer. The second one was written from the point of view of a very famous minor television personality, which is what I had unexpectedly become between those two books. And the third one is written from the point of view of a deranged millionaire, which is not exactly what I am in either respect, but it was the feeling that I had once I very unexpectedly, having never imagined myself being even a deranged thousandaire, found myself with a certain amount of financial independence that I never expected I, as a writer, would ever get to enjoy. Someday you'll get there. It's pretty amazing.
Maybe at that point I'll have the nerve to take my shoes off.
I think you should just do it now, man. You go out in public with those dumb...
Let's do it.
You go out in public with those dumb toe shoes anyway.
Is the appropriate technique shoe sock or shoe sock sock?
Oh, whatever you want to do.
I didn't realize how dirty the shoes were. This is somewhat freeing.
It is. Now, this is the next part you have to do is this. Because then you don't know what's going to happen. You may be going home without socks. You can keep them if you want.
I'm not emotionally ready for that, I don't think.
The reason I wrote about the end of the world was in this book is because A, it's hilarious. Mortality is hilarious. But also because, I honestly was contemplating. The Apple ads had ended. I had turned 40, so presumably the second half of my life was beginning, or maybe the last fifth of my life was beginning. I wasn't sure. And this series of books was ending, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. And we reach those points in our lives that are terrifying, where it's just like, yeah, I worked for this, and it's done. Now it's completely empty. And if you're a writer of any kind, or a creator of any kind, whether it's comedy or drama or whatever it is, the most important thing is to be honest. Even if you are writing a book of fake facts, you have to be weirdly honest. Do you know what I mean?
True.
Otherwise, it's just a parlor game. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
And one thing I do not want is for this to be a parlor game.
This is all, and we are a half hour into this event.
Don't worry, I got my alarm.
I know.
Yeah.
And I have finally arrived at my question.
Oh, good.
And I thought it would be only appropriate to ask you a question that I first heard posed to Conan the Barbarian, of course, the Arnold Schwarzenegger original, which I saw as a 15-year-old in the Westfield Theater on opening night.
Oh, really?
Along with there were like 24 people who were there for Arnold Schwarzenegger, and one person who was there for Conan. And the question posed...
By Crom, that's a touching story.
Isn't it, though? The question posed to Schwarzenegger, to Conan, during his time in the slave pits, is, Conan, what is good in life?
What is to see your enemies...
To crush your enemy.
To
drive them before you.
And hear the lamentation of their women.
That would be Conan's answer.
Well, how could it be anyone else's answer?
Well,
Or I mean, what other answer is there, I guess? Is
that
what
was
I'm
my
saying.
question. I wanted to ask you, Judge John Hodgman,
Yeah,
author of The Complete World Knowledge,
yeah.
what actually you thought of what you've learned from these people coming to you with dilemmas, your own life. What, in fact, has
good?
value?
What is good in life?
Yes.
The podcasts are great.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think that there's something to be said, actually, for that. I mean, what is good in life right now, in a narcissistic sense,
Please.
is or a self-involved sense, is that creative people can reach audiences very easily now, in a way that they could not, even 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. When I started as a literary agent in New York City, there was a reason that there were literary agents, because you needed someone to grease the wheels and game the system so that your work, whatever it was you were doing, could find an audience. And that is not necessary now. I mean, there's still a lot of value in publishing books, but if you simply want to try something out and reach people, you can do it through any number of means. And while a lot of people find that causes there to be a lot of dumb tweets on Twitter about what people are having for lunch that day, I think even that is a good thing.
Really?
Yeah, because creative people can develop a voice, and they can develop their own interests, and they can reach an audience and cultivate an audience, and maybe even make a world and life for themselves.
Yes.
And so in that sense, that is good. Like, podcasts are good. I only think in creative terms. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to be able to reach an audience is an incredible thing. And to learn how to be an artist independently is fantastic, because you're doing the thing that you want to do. And whether you're, and now to open it up a little bit more, if you are not a creative person, first of all, get out. But no, if you're not a creative person, there is something that you want to do. And it might not be to make a podcast, but whatever it is, it might be to run a dumb triathlon. But there is in you a thing that you want to do. And then there is a lot of time that most people spend not doing that,
Right.
and talking themselves out of doing that thing, coming up with excuses, or just indulging in the fear of giving the thing a try, whatever it is. And now we're in a world where there is almost no excuse not to give it a try, specifically in creative world, but I think generally so. And we're also in a world where we don't have to waste a lot of time in order to see if that thing is going to work. Because the thing that is, of ultimate value, is utterly time.
Right.
I mean, whether the world is going to end on December 21st in fire and flood and famine, leaving only John Cusack alive, like we've seen in the literature, or whether time does actually extend beyond December, we still don't have a lot of it. And unless you're a person of tremendous and very specific faith,
Right.
that there is something else after that, what is good in life is to use the time in a way that is fun and fulfilling and excellent for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think podcasts help a lot. I brought it around to podcasts.
Very well done.
I think podcasts and it's it's so dumb and reductive to say, but the internet so dramatically changed the course of my career. The internet is how I heard from Dave Eggers that he was starting a magazine that I tried to write for and discovered a comedic voice and found my comedic voice there. The internet is how that comedic voice got out and first found an audience. The internet is how I became a professional magazine writer and I could research stuff. The internet is how I became became something other than what I was, which was, someone working at a very nice desk in a publishing agency who was unhappy.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I think, that's a very specific path, but the ability that we have now to reach out to one another provides, if the only thing the internet provides for more and more and more people every day is consolation in loneliness, it's worth it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I think that's a good thing, too.
I remember your very dear friend Jonathan Colton said to an audience when I was in the audience, "There's never been a better time to be unemployed." in the history of human
Yeah,
race.
yeah, absolutely.
Because there's nothing to prevent an unemployed person from doing whatever the heck they want.
Oh. Okay, that means we have 5 more minutes before question and answer.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I'm going to try. This is a fool's errand, but I'm going to try 2 more questions.
Okay. Lightning round.
You are. Anybody who reads your book, anybody who listens to your podcast will know how incredibly versed you are in what you call culture, which is your general term for pop culture, references, literature, television, film, anything like that.
Yeah.
And your stuff is larded with.
It's my
brilliant
term.
references.
It's my term for
Yes.
that stuff. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean,
I invented it.
at your podcast, you will.
Before
often
that,
say,
they only used culture to describe yogurt, and I started putting it into the.
no, it's interesting because you will say.
the creative
you will
arts
say
sphere.
at the podcast you'll say who recognizes that piece of culture, which
Yes.
I've never quite heard before.
Oh yes.
How does it feel yourself to be a piece of culture? There are, for example, thousands of PC and Mac Apple ad parodies out there. Many of the things that you have done, including the phrase "that is all," I think have gotten out there into the culture. That you
Well,
yourself
that is
are
all
now-
I stole from MASH.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that's been your catchphrase from a while. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Ray O'Reilly.
Yeah, it was Ray O'Reilly or whoever did the public address.
Yeah.
They would go, guess what, everybody? There's some crazy surgeons distilling gin in a tent. That is all, or whatever, like.
I did not realize that.
Pretty,
but that is...
pretty soon there are going to be some sexy hijinks, but then Alan Alda's going to get serious. That is all. He's described all of MASH, if you haven't seen it.
I don't remember it being that self-referential, but...
Yeah, well, that's how it would be this
Yes,
time.
exactly.
Well, one of the things about culture, and particularly cultural reference, is that it is a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
I'll answer your question, but David Rees, if you don't know who David Rees is, please do your research on the internet. He created the comic Get Your War On, which was an amazing sort of political protest, hilarious comic in Rolling Stone during the George Bush years. Now he's plying his trade as very seriously as an artisanal pencil sharpener. But he said something to me that really shook me to my bones, which is making a cultural reference is not making culture. And it really got me because I do love to make cultural references. I just did a go-to to MASH. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much of my humor and my way of thinking is making references to movies and TV shows and stuff that I love because it is a kind of, to some hand, a sort of a little bit of a semaphore to the Blake Seven fan up there. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I know what you mean.
Like we're talking about the same thing, you and me, and yet, and so much of culture these days is making cultural reference. MASH would be incredibly self-referential these days, and so much of culture the popular culture that we are sold today is a remake or a reboot or a reimagination of stuff that came before because it makes those things make more money than original stuff.
Right.
And yet it is essentially a hollow kind of culture in the sense that there are a lot of people here. Most people get MASH, right? But there are children here who don't know what MASH is. And soon enough, that's going to disappear. And what I said, that joke I made is nothing, without that moment that shared cultural reference. And of course, if you only make reboots and reimaginations, you get X-Men First Class, which is, no, not good. Right? Have we all figured out that movie was no good? Like, a lot of people tricked themselves into thinking that it was good because it was a good idea for a movie, but it was not actually a good movie. It was a cultural reference to itself. Every applause line in that movie came when they made reference to the other movies in the X-Men franchise in order to distract you from the fact that this was not a very good movie. Michael Fassbender, really good in it, though. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Started out good, but it was not. I'd watch Magneto hunt Nazis for like a 10-hour miniseries.
He also,
But
may I say, major points for me for being such a Jewish badass.
yeah, right, exactly so.
Not a lot of them.
That was like when you were watching the beginning of that movie.
Yes.
You were like, oh, wait a minute, this is a really good movie that they tricked everyone into watching by calling it an X-Men movie.
Right.
But then they gave up on it after the first. As soon as he got tapped by Charles Xavier, they gave up on it and just started making references to weird X-Men trivia. Who cares? Why don't you make a intrinsically good thing? And so that, I think, has been, since David Rees scared me by saying what he said, I think is something that I encourage people and especially myself to do. I try not to make those cultural references, and as obsessed as I am with pop culture.
Really?
Yeah, and to answer your question, sorry. All right. Now it's time for you to ask questions.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is.
Well, I
Yep.
think, is it that time?
Do you have?
We have 5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes.
Well,
All
let
right.
me ask you my last
So
question.
no, so I'll answer your question really quickly, lightning round style.
Yes.
How does it feel? It's of course it's utterly surreal.
Yeah.
To be a part of. It's not something that I expected to happen in my life. I love movies. I love TV. I love books, and it did not seem. By the time I was 35, looking the way I do, I did not think that there was going to be a career for myself in any kind of visual medium.
Right.
And now it is the case that I made one small thumbprint on American culture for a brief period of time, and that thumbprint has like a thumbprint lock has opened a door to what I get to meet people that make things that I like.
Yes.
And really, from a creative point of view, that's all I ever wanted anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because those are the people who inspire you, challenge you, get you to do something better or whatever. But that thumbprint will fade, just like my MASH joke will be meaningless in 1,000 years, just like we'll all be dead. There you go. Question answered.
Which actually,
Next question, lightning round.
Actually, it brings me to the last question I had, which I think will get us to their questions, which is, in your book, That Is All, as we all know, as you have referenced, you predict the end of the world. You describe it, December 21st or December 12th?
December 21st.
December 21st.
That's what the Mayan long count calendar says.
Yes.
Have you seen the Mayan long count calendar?
I couldn't get through it, it was too long.
Yeah. Do you know what's on it?
What's on it?
Sexy Mayan firefighters.
Really? Like, posing
Well,
in
they're just firefighters.
posing in their suspenders, no shirt.
Yeah. They
Or made of feathers, because they're Mayans.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, they're sexy feathers.
Right, leaning against a ziggurat of some kind.
Exactly so. Yes, very nicely put. A step pyramid.
My first question is,
Why couldn't they get those pyramids right? Why couldn't they make smooth pyramids? What's wrong with them?
maybe they used Etch-a-Sketches to plan them.
Ah.
Because I could never get the. Anyway.
Yes. So
My first question is, where will you be on December 21st, the day of the Mayan predicted apocalypse, as reiterated by you, John Hodgman?
I will be at the Bell House in Brooklyn, New York, doing a performance.
Really?
And presiding over whatever faithful come to spend the last night on earth with me.
Right.
In a weird reenactment of the 1844 Great Disappointment. Look it up.
Well, and that was the second question, which was, of course, as you just referenced, there have been millennial cults that have predicted specifically the end of the world.
Yeah.
They have all been wrong so far.
I know, one day one of them will be right.
Exactly. It might well be you, but do you
don't.
have plans, because you're well-versed in these prior instances?
Yeah, if the world does not end on December 21st, I'm obviously going to be very disappointed because I will have been proved wrong. But I think ultimately I'll have to find something new to do. I think that is all in terms of these books of fake fiction.
Yeah.
And my acting career, such as it is, has matured to the point of if there's a role for a dude who sits at a desk and wears glasses, might call me. But frequently, not even that.
Really?
And so I think for me, this is why I say again, thank Cthulhu for podcasts, because Judge John Hodgman, I think, is the future. It's the thing that is most creatively interesting to me. I love talking to people, and I love being able to just have those conversations, and I love telling people they're wrong and telling them what to do.
Yeah.
And so I think, and that is something that would not be available to me if that form didn't exist. It's extremely encouraging to hear people applaud that particular program, because I think that that's something that I'd like to do more.
So that may be, so we may have, now that we'll be done with John Hodgman, compendier of world knowledge? Compiler of world knowledge.
Yeah.
We're moving on to the period of John Hodgman, assuming the world does not end.
Yeah.
John Hodgman, sage.
Yeah.
John Hodgman, dispenser of wisdom. And
Not dispenser of wisdom, judge.
excuse me.
There shall be a judgment.
Yes.
Whether the world ends on December 21st or not, there will be a judgment. And I will decide who is right and who is wrong.
as you often do, which I find remarkable. I think
I judge you to have done a very good job.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's you make it easy. Let us. I believe it is time.
So if you would like to ask questions, there are microphones here and
there.
here.
You'd line up nicely, and to quote
balcony people, unfortunately, you're fornicated in this one because unless you want to come down somehow.
I have always felt a certain sympathy with people in the balcony. I don't know
I really
why.
do feel bad children for swearing. I really do try to be family friendly because I am myself a parent of human children. So I apologize. I'm not joking. I apologize to the parents and all the parents of the world. Good heavens. Here comes someone.
To quote the great Chris Borelli, who writes for the Tribune in an article he wrote this morning that referenced this very event, please phrase, actually he was quoting Andy Borowitz, so it's a double quote. Please phrase your questions in the form of a question. Sir.
Okay. Since Bill Murray is playing Franklin Roosevelt in a movie, and you have that beautiful mustache, have you ever thought of playing Joseph Stalin?
Oh. Well, first of all, I'm very flattered you would equate me with Bill Murray in any way. I think that is how Hollywood makes decisions.
Who has a mustache?
Yeah. Oh, you know how the comedy legend Bill Murray is going to be playing Franklin Roosevelt. Why don't we make Hodgman has a mustache? Let's make a Stalin movie. If anyone asked me to star in a movie of any kind, I would say yes. Even one in which I play Stalin, although I think I would do better doing the other Roosevelt, Teddy.
In reference to your point earlier about podcasts being a good thing, enabling you to reach people a lot more easily than you used to, do you think there's a danger, or not a danger, but the problem with being able to do so before you're ready, where people get an idea of you before you've matured?
No, because if you don't do things, you won't. How will you get ready if you don't do things?
Well, I mean, in such big a public eye.
Did you write several drafts of that question before you got?
Yes, I did.
I mean, I would say this is probably true about everything except maybe base jumping from space. That the only way you learn to do things is by doing it and making mistakes and then trying again.
Doing it in a public
and
forum.
doing it in public, particularly in the creative world, you have to do things in public. That's the whole point. So no, I don't think that there's any. I mean, there is a problem with podcasting, or let's just say, totally democratic media, and that there's going to be a lot of garbage out there that you have to compete with. But it's just all the more reason to do something really interesting and discover your voice. And once you find out what it is that you really want to do and can do well, no one's going to remember the mistakes you made. They'll be there on YouTube or whatever, but there'll be a fond and distant memory. Do you know what I mean? And when I say podcasting, perhaps it's inappropriate to say podcasting since it specifically references an Apple product. No, I'll say it. I like that. But I mean, that kind of democratization of media, podcasting is just the start. In a couple of years, I mean, it's already possible to completely independently make a television show and show it to the entire world. As prices come down in that technology, people are making TV shows as easily as people make podcasts now, and you're going to get great ones. And I think it's just people have been able to write and get their stuff around completely, but in all media, it's just going to be, it's great. I think it's really good. There's nothing wrong with it. Get away.
Thank you.
What's wrong with it? Yes, sir.
Can I get a judgment?
You come
like
before me.
I put my case forward.
You come seeking the king's justice.
I do.
What is your problem?
I
He's a saint.
have a friend that abuses a completely valid medical excuse to get out of events. Should I let him get away with it?
A medical excuse to get out of event.
Correct.
Okay.
Like a fine talk by
Just get to the point.
two gentlemen. Can
What?
I call him out on it?
What?
Can I
What are the
call that
words coming out of your mouth?
individual
I demand, no, this is seriously. Now, I want you to be straightforward and just tell me what the thing is.
I have a friend who uses his medical condition to get out of events. Can I
What
call
is his
him
medical
on it?
condition?
Can you call him on it?
Can I call him on it?
Can you call him on it?
Correct.
So this person is
No,
ill.
no. That's not
as
a judgment. That's just you bragging about your friend being weird or whatever. You come to my court, there's going to be a judgment, and that is going to be that that friend cannot do that anymore, or you have to shut up about it for the rest of your life. There are consequences to judgment. Do you understand? So before you start asking, can I call him on it? That's your choice. You can call him on it anytime you want. What is his condition?
He gets headaches.
He gets headaches?
Correct.
Does he suffer from migraine headaches?
Correct.
No, you can't. Yeah, of course he can get out of stuff.
Thank you.
Where is he right now?
At home.
With a headache?
Yes.
Call him up and apologize to him.
Thank you.
Yes.
Since you've written everything, I was wondering, are you ever going to try to bring QI to the U.S.?
Oh, wow. There's a hardcore center of QI fans right over there. QI is a British television show that is hosted by the great Stephen Fry in England. And it's a quiz show where he asks very hard, weird, esoteric trivia questions, and various guest panelists try to guess the answers. And it's scored sort of at whim, because Stephen will give points for interesting answers even if they are not really correct. And often just answering answers correctly is penalized. And I know this personally. It's sort of you get a point, but you don't get real points because you're not being interesting. And I know this personally because I was on the show in England. You know, one of the things about being part of popular culture is that you totally get to insinuate yourself into everything you love. So I've totally weaseled my way into Battlestar Galactica. I weaseled my way into having drinks with John Hamm several times. I spent a week at the Chateau Marmont the other week with Dick Cavett and Mel Brooks and Bryan Cranston and Kristen Schaal and Toon Yards and Mountain Goats just because I lacked for stimulation that week. And then I was able to weasel my way into QI, and it was a miserable experience because those people are really smart and funny and fast, and I wasn't in the rhythm of it, and I eventually just had to default to answering the questions correctly, consequently I saw the punishment. Which in Britain, the punishment is you win. That was to their minds the most insulting thing they could do to the American who came over to play their game was to let him win. That was how they showed me that I had properly fornicated up. But it will not come over to America, I happen to know, because the rights holders think that it is too intelligent for America. That's not an exaggeration. That's actually the reason, and I don't think it'll ever happen, unfortunately. Yeah, maybe, but no. BBC America, BBC makes the show, and BBC America won't air it over here because there are too many shows about people finding things in attics. They got to show.
This young lady here, I think, has a question.
We have time just for one more question, and then as a reminder, Mr. Hodgman will be signing books in the lower level. Thank you.
Thank you. Round of applause for Dana, our stage manager.
Thank you for the sock, first of all. I've got a drawer at home that will make it feel very at home.
You're welcome.
Was there ever at any point in your acting career or in just any part in your career in general?
I don't have an acting career, so.
Was there ever at any point did you ask yourself, what the heck have I gotten myself into?
Never with or very rarely with like real regret. Do you know what I mean? Like, I got to get out of this.
Yeah.
It was always sort of with amazement and productive terror. Do you know what I mean? But never like I got to get out of here. Although there was probably like the other week at the Chateau Marmont, it was like I got to hear one more Groucho Marx story from Dick Cavett. I am going to shoot myself. No, there are never too many. I don't think so. I mean, I think that is the feeling that I think best describes it, is amazement and productive terror. And you know, that terror is really a good thing to feel, you know. Stephen Colbert, I recently learned about him. I was talking with another one of my famous friends, and we were talking about Stephen Colbert and this, just how brilliant and awesome and incredible he is, son of the Second City that he is. And one thing I learned through this friend, which makes so much sense, was that he trained himself to never feel embarrassment. And he literally went through a training regimen when he was a comic here in Chicago, or, you know, an improv artist, I guess you would say. Tell close, blah, blah. Sorry, Chicago, it's a little much. But he would just put himself into situations where people would be confused by him, be mad at him, look badly at him. He would walk across the street. This is what I heard from my famous friend, so I don't even know if it's true. But he would just walk across the street doing this in front of cars. But much more slowly than that, apparently. And it was just to train himself not to be embarrassed. And I think suddenly you appreciate Stephen Colbert all that much more, because that's why he can do what he does. And the truth of it is, like, if you were going to put yourself on a weird training regimen of solitary quest for personal self-perfection, how much better it is to train yourself to not be embarrassed than to fucking run and swim and jump. That's the end.
Thank you.
I hope I didn't embarrass you.
Oh, no. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Hodgman.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Peter Sagal.
Thank you.